All right, we have a microphone now. Hopefully my voice won't be too booming. I'll say to you again, ladies and gentlemen, let's get started. Please take your seats. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Raymond Funderburk. I'm going to be the moderator for this afternoon's forum. We're going to get started. Before we start, however, there is a preliminary statement that I'm going to read on behalf of the Non-Partisan Committee. Since 1956, the Non-Partisan Committee has provided forums to enable all candidates for village office to present their views to the public without expense to themselves. We have been able to do so with the help of citizens like yourself. To help maintain this tradition, we ask that you consider joining the committee or that you renew your membership if you're already a member. Dues are only $3 for an individual, $5 for families, $2 for senior citizens. A representative from the Non-Partisan Committee Board has brochures explaining the committee and its objectives and would be glad to sign you up. Today's forum is hosted by the National Congress of Black Women and also by Nurses Plus. We have this afternoon Ms. Mamie Rogers, who is going to present us with some opening remarks on behalf of the National Congress of Black Women. Ms. Rogers?
Thank you, Judge Funderburk. Good afternoon. It's great to see all of you. Once again, I'm Mamie Rogers, the founding chair of the National Congress of Black Women Metro Chicago chapter, also referred to as NCBW. We are delighted to have all of you here, and I want to acknowledge some of our members who are here. I have a few of them in the back with us. Will you raise your hand? Okay, there's one you can see. On behalf of these ladies and our entire organization, we want to thank the Non-Partisan Committee for its role in presenting this very important forum and for the opportunity extended to NCBW to host the event. The National Congress of Black Women is a non-profit civic organization with over 100 chapters throughout the country that strive to empower women and their family through a variety of programs. We're always looking for new members to join in that endeavor. So if you are one who is all about progress and action, one who wants to make a difference, we encourage you to bring your ideas, your efforts, and your energy to NCBW, and let's work together to continue to bring about positive changes in our community and in our country. If you're interested, you can pick up our brochure and application in the rear and give us a call. For your immediate convenience, we can be reached at 708-747-5757 or Chicago ncbw@yahoo.com. And by way of a quick announcement, we are also accepting youth membership applications. Any youth joining this year will receive a complimentary membership. Speaking of youth, on April 18th, we'll conduct a college career for high school students and college students. Feel free to contact us and learn more. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to take this opportunity at this time to explain the format for today's forum. We have two candidates for president of the village board, candidate Jerome Brown and candidate John Ostenberg. We're putting them on the same level. The format is as follows. The time allotted for this segment of the forum will be approximately 50 minutes. Each candidate will be given an opportunity to make a 2-minute opening statement if he wishes, or if the candidate wishes. There will be questions from the Non-Partisan Committee. There will be 2 or 3 general questions from the members of the Non-Party Commission, so that we can get started with the questions. Now, there's a change this year. Previously, in previous years, questions were submitted in writing. This year, there is a change. All questions will be presented orally or verbally. All individuals who wishing to ask questions will give you the opportunity to line up against the wall over there where Mr. Donahue is seated in that area, and all questions will be orally. You should state your name, state your address, and then present your question. You will be given 30 seconds to present your question. There'll be a timekeeper with respect to the time allotted with respect to presenting your questions. Another change this year is that there will be no rebuttals by the candidates. No rebuttals will be allowed by the candidates. If the candidate or a candidate wishes to make a rebuttal statement, then the candidate should choose to do so by incorporating the same in an answer to any question, or the candidate, if he or she wishes, can present a rebuttal in the closing argument or a closing statement. Sorry. There will be a 2-minute closing statement by each candidate. And I did say closing argument. I won't say closing argument. That's legal, so to speak. A 2-minute closing statement. So we'll get started, ladies and gentlemen, and give each candidate for Village Board President an opportunity to make a 2-minute opening statement. We'll start in alphabetical order. Therefore, we'll start with Mr. Jerome Brown. Mr. Brown? Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Thank you. First and foremost, like I do always, I'd like to thank my Lord and Savior for giving me the strength and the power to be here. Secondly, I'd like to thank the citizens of Park Forest, the audience participation, and the people that are watching. My family and myself, we live here in Park Forest. We attend church here in Park Forest at Grace Church. I have a 5-year-old, 20-year-old, and a lovely wife by the name of Franja Brown that's in the audience today. The great thing about this community that I love is they gave my family opportunity. And originally, when I came here, I heard a lot of things saying what I should not be able to do as far as running for public office. So today, what I will be talking to you about is not only my views and the things that I want to do for Park Forest, but I want to give some life lessons because I've learned a lot here. My son was born here in Park Forest. To get back to my career, I have my career is a full spectrum. It starts from Fortune 500 companies to nonprofit companies. I've worked for Citibank, Smith Barney, and United Insurance on the profit side, and on the nonprofit side, I've worked for a youth advocate program where I dealt with at-risk teens. And once again, the teens that I dealt with, they didn't cut classes, they cut people, not necessarily with knives, but with bullets. And we were able to take those kids and turn their lives around, where they became, in some cases, honorable students, went to college, and some to the service. After that, I became an advocate for people who were in the unemployment field. The company that I work for, once again, we do not only train we do not only get people jobs, but we train people before we get them a job. We deal with things such as customer service, conflict resolution, resume, interviewing techniques, and a whole range of other things. Then we strategically put them in the field that they're looking for, and we're able to help them get back employed, and we are able to help the employers with overhead costs. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. The next candidate for village mayor or president of the village board is Mr. John Ostenberg. Mr. Ostenberg, good morning.
Thank you, Judge.
Rather. Sorry. Good afternoon.
Thank you very much. And I want to thank the National Congress of Black Women, the Nursing Department, and, of course, the Non-Partisan Committee for giving us this opportunity again today. You know, I remember back in 1980, some of you probably recall, Teddy Kennedy decided that he was going to challenge Jimmy Carter for president in the Democratic primary. And Roger Mudd, who was a correspondent for CBS, asked Teddy a question that kind of stumped him. And that question was, why do you want to be president? And a lot of people say that that was the end of Teddy Kennedy's presidential campaign because he was had such a difficult time answering that question. That's a question that I ask myself. You know, I asked myself that before I decided to take out petitions again for another term and to circulate them among our friends and neighbors, because it's a very important question. Why do I want to serve in this office? And I'll tell you the answer. The answer is because I've come to learn that the citizens of this community have certain expectations for their elected officials to be able to do some kind of things. And some of those things are, how do you open the door so that our highly professional staff can accomplish the things that they have to accomplish. You know, yesterday we had our annual audit, and the auditors told us for the second year in a row there were no material defects at all in the audit. And they pointed out that that's kind of an uncommon thing among a lot of municipalities. And so what is incumbent upon the elected officials is to create the right atmosphere, to make the right kind of context so that the people we hire who are professionals can in fact do their job and do it in an effective way. We do that in economic development. We do that with the various departments that we have. And I think that the role I play in that regard has been the key over the last several years in helping to open some doors for us to gain grants and to accomplish a number of other things that are important for our citizens. And I'll be happy to elaborate on any of those if there are questions that are forthcoming.
Thank you. Thank you very much. At this time, ladies and gentlemen, we'll have questions from a representative of the Non-Partisan Committee. So is there a representative to step forward to the podium to present, or first question?
The
Thank you.
Non-Partisan Committee. This is questions for both candidates. If elected or re-elected, what do you see as the most important issue facing the village?
Thank you. We'll start first with candidate Brown.
What was the question? You said the most, I'm sorry, Clarence Banks, you said what was the most important issue?
Facing the village. What do you see as the most important issue facing the village?
I think it's several. One, of course, everyone knows is taxes, and the taxes will relate to businesses. And I think that from meeting after meeting, we're being told that we cannot lower taxes. And I'm saying that it's a fact that we can. We must bring businesses into Park Forest. And once again, when I speak about bringing businesses into Park Forest, I'm not just focused on the downtown area. We have two huge areas called Lincoln Highway, which is Route 30, and Western. I say let's bring businesses not only to those streets, but to the downtown area as well. We have a large component that's missing in this town. Number one is we have not anything to do for our children. I have a 5-year-old. I have to take him to Tinley Park for birthday parties, which is Odyssey Fun World, or I have to take him to Lansing for jumping jack. We should have a facility like that that would not only bring businesses, lower taxes, but also give jobs. Once we have a anchor business, other businesses will follow. And with having that as a situation, far as not having businesses, another reason why the businesses are not coming here outside of the taxes are, we are not that business friendly. Just one of the things that we're having a problem with is signs that that businesses are not able to put up to advertise their business. Some people may say McDonald's is not the best hamburger in the world, but they're number one in the world, and that's because of advertisement and business. And marketing. And when you take the advertisement and the marketing bloodline away from a business, you're looking at a business that's willing to fail.
Thank you. Candidate Ostenberg.
Thank you, Judge. I think that the major problem facing the village of Park Forest as we look forward is housing. I don't think there's any question that that's probably the most critical thing that we have. The village of Park Forest did not cause the housing crisis any more than any of our neighbors caused it in their communities. But it has had a dramatic impact on our village. We had 700 homes go into foreclosure. That's a remarkable number for a town of 22,000 people. We all know why that was, bad loans that were made by lending institutions, and we know at the federal level there's been some actions taken. But how do we address that problem at the local level? That's a critical issue. I'm a member of the Cook County Land Bank Authority, was appointed by County Board President Tony Preckwinkle. The object of the Land Bank Authority is, in fact, to begin to look at properties and how do we get them back on the tax rolls. The village of Park Forest, over the course of the last few years, was one of the key components in establishing the South Suburban Land Bank Authority. That land bank is also doing the same thing, and we've had some pretty remarkable successes so far. Now, one of the things that's important for us to remember about houses that are off the tax rolls is that that is, in fact, the reason why our taxes keep escalating. Last year, the village of Park Forest passed a tax increase of 1.4%. That's all the money that the village got in terms of being more than what we had received the previous year. But homeowners paid 10% more for the village. And why was that? That was because so many properties had fallen off the tax rolls. So we really have to get those properties back. They are crucial to neighborhoods. You know, if there's a vacant home on your street, you know it's an attractive nuisance. People don't always maintain them, the banks or whomever owns them. So we've put together a concerted program to work on that issue, and I think it's the one that we have to really focus on for the coming years to make sure that we get our community back to what it was.
Thank you very much. We'll have another question from a representative of the Non-Partisan Committee.
Thank you, Ray. My name is Jack Donahue, and my question is, where do you see the village 4 years from now?
Is this a question for both candidates?
Yes, it is.
All right, we'll start with Mr. Ostenberg.
Well, as I look to the future, I think that we have to look at what kinds of things are in the process right now that we are apparently having some movement on. You know, some of our neighboring communities have had to make drastic cuts in their personnel. The Village of Park Forest has not had to do that. So I envision that as we go forward over the course of the next 4 years, if we maintain the same kind of fiscal responsibility that we have, that not only will we be able to keep the same number of police officers and firefighter, paramedics, et cetera, but to increase those to meet the needs that our community has. We know that our community is an aging community, and as a result of that, there's certain kinds of things that we have to put in effect to satisfy the needs that our older citizens have. At the same time, with younger citizens coming in, we're going to have to also massage the way we handle some of our parks and recreation programs and things of that sort. You know, it's an interesting thing, and this is another thing that came out yesterday when we had our audit discussion. You know, there's always this thing about other communities have a community center. Well, nobody stops and think that Park Forest has several community centers. Park Forest has an aqua center that other towns don't have. We have Freedom Hall, where not only do we have programs for children, for the elderly, for the average citizen, but we also have meeting rooms where various clubs and organizations gather. We have a recreation center at the junior high school that's a village facility that we have special programs at. We have the racket and tennis ball club that we're now looking at how we can perhaps expand that. So as we look to where we're going to be in the future, I think we're going to have more opportunity to provide the services for the citizens that the citizens need. And that's really what local government is all about. Take your tax dollars, spend them wisely, and provide the services that are needed for the community.
Thank you. Mr. Brown?
4 years from now, with strategic planning, I think that Park Forest will be on a move to going in the right directions. Number one, with the homes that we have built in the downtown area, what keeps a village alive or a city alive is bringing in new blood, and the new blood have to be a growing blood. What do I mean by that? We'd have to focus on young adults that have 1 or 2 kids. And the area that's downtown Park Forest that was made, I never would have gave it a stamp of approval. I have a 5-year-old. We need a backyard for our kid to play in. Any house that we've lived in, it have a backyard in it. When you're building homes without backyards, you're not focused on growing this community. So who are these houses made for? Are they made for senior citizens? No, because the bedrooms are on the second floor. Who wants to walk a flight of stairs every day when they get ready to go to bed? So I don't know. I don't even understand who these homes are made for. They're not made for the senior citizens. They're not made for the growing population. The only people they could be made for are a single male or female that do not plan on growing. After that, once again, my kid being 5 years old, I am interested in education, the schools, things for him to have leisure time and things of that nature. We do not have a community center here. You cannot make me a hamburger and call it a steak. If I want a steak, that's what I want. I want to talk about, is it going to be medium or well done? If the people here are saying that they need a community center for the children, let's develop a community center. We can't tell them that we have a swimming pool over here and a sliding board over there and a merry-go-round 2 blocks up. That's not a community center. Those are different places to do different things. We are looking for a place, a safe environment, something that we could do programs in, and when you look around and you see community that have things like this, it's more or less a safer community, and it's a better community. And people are looking for education and things for their kids to do. That's number one.
Thank you. Is there another question from a representative of the nonpartisan committee? Hearing none and not having one. This now, ladies and gentlemen, is the time to open up the forum for public questions. So if there's anyone who has a question, we're going to have you to move over to the wall and queue up, so to speak, and we'll start. Good afternoon, ma'am.
I'm Celia Ann Toll. I've lived in Park Forest for 55 years. No, that's wrong. Since 1955 is what I live at 23435 Western in the Oaks of Forest Hill. I do have a question for Mr. Brown. In addition to your extensive volunteer work, which you have listed in the programs, what in your experience, in your professional experience, can you bring to the office of mayor or president of this village that qualifies you for the position?
Thank you, ma'am. This is a question for Mr. Brown. Mr. Brown.
Thank you. If you read the program correctly, it would not only state the volunteer work that I did, and I've mentioned here a couple times that I've worked for Citibank, I've also worked for Smith Barney, and I've also worked for United Insurance. All of those things happen to have something to do with running the village, which is money, investments. The village have insurance. The police department have insurance. When we are talking, when we are in executive meetings or board meetings, when they're talking about anything to have to do with investments or insurance, I know that language. Outside of that, we have a problem here with safety right now. We have a ton of break-ins, and those break-ins have crossed Will County, Cook County, co-ops, homeowners, and everyone. I've already said again, the nonprofit organization that I work for, I do get paid for them. It's not a volunteer job. The company that I work for, they pay me, and they also bonus me the more jobs I get. So I'm pretty much effective in what I do. So far as safety, I could mentor these kids, and I'm willing to bring a mentoring program into this village to help these kids get on or back on the right track. Last but not leastly, I'm a youth. I work for a company right now called CAPS. Once again, it's not a voluntary position. It's a paid position. And I'm a job developer. I create jobs. And how do I create jobs? By dealing with businesses. So I have connections that bring businesses to Park Forest, and I also have the trained people. And last but not least, we have to deal with education here. It's been people who have been saying this and that about people who just been appointed, like the governor. I could guarantee you this: no matter who have money, we need it here in Park Forest. I have a relationship with Reverend Meeks that would help with the monies that we need in this village for our education.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Next question, please. Step up to the podium, state your name and address, and ask your question. You have 30 seconds.
My name is Joan Adams. I live in the Area E Co-ops on Gervstown. My question is also for Jerome Brown. What economic and planning development programs do you have in mind, and what services would you cut in order to lower taxes?
Right now, the
question for Mr. Brown.
Right now, like I said, one of the first ventures that I will be looking at is doing a basically small or mini Odyssey Farm World that will be right next door to the Country Squire store. Outside of that, I have a ton of business partners, and I have people in the corporate America that I've talked to on a regular basis. That's how I get jobs. So I'm talking to people in the corporate industry, and I'm also talking to entrepreneurs that have their own businesses that are willing to come here. But the number one thing is saying, Jerome, it's not until you get there, because we don't want to go through all of the red tape that we hear that you have to go through. Just myself, I just bought another house in Park Forest, and out of 3 bathrooms, one of the bathroom cold water didn't get hot, And outside of me paying for a down payment, closing, and lawyers and all of that type of things, I was denied the right to move into my own property. I had to make phone. I'm a trustee, and I think that a sink not producing hot water, even if I don't like hot water, but I have 2 other bathrooms that do, they wouldn't give me occupancy. So it's things like that that we need to revamp some of the ordinances that we have here. Basically, like signs that that the businesses have here, that they only can have a sign so big where where people are driving past them every single day. So I have a wealth of information on how to run businesses and how to bring businesses in and have great relationships with the businesses that I have done business with.
Thank you. Next person, please step up to the podium, state your name and address, and 30 seconds to ask your question.
My name is John Lester. I live at 192 Park Street. This question is related to a couple of incidents that happened in this country and the village recent. The publicity the village has received from the shooting of a 95-year-old man, military veteran, was justified. Do you think this would have happened if the village had resident requirement? This could be arbitrated in the next contract. P.S. The village president resigned and the village of Park Forest survived.
Is this for both candidates?
Both candidates.
Thank you very much. We'll start with candidate Brown.
Again, I think that your question was that a police officer was found innocent from the situation that happened with the 95-year-old guy.
The main gist of the question, should this be negotiated, residential requirement should be negotiated in the next police contract?
Oh.
That's the main part.
Well, you have them all hard. I said that from day one, and I believe that a safe community is a good community, and those are people who are invested in the community. One reason why I'm really into what kids do and education is because I have a kid or 2. And if a police, not saying that there's nothing wrong with the police because it'll be in the internet paper tomorrow that I said something that I didn't say, but if the police here and they care about the community, number one, the tax dollars the money that we pay them for them to pay their mortgage and whatever else money they spend, we'll see a return of that dollar. The second thing, the vacant homes that we keep saying we could put them back on the tax roll. We can't put houses back on the tax roll that have been knocked down. So we could fill these houses, especially with our police officers. We could grandfather the people who are on the force already, but the new people that are coming in on that force, yeah, let's negotiate something new. And then the people who are already on the department, let's give them some type of incentives to say, hey, if you want to come here, you don't have to drive into work. You can walk to work. You could ride your bike to work. I believe wholeheartedly that we should have our contract should be negotiated where residence is a requirement for not only the fire department, but for the police department, but also for the fire department. I believe that wholeheartedly it's a safe environment. Drug dealers are not going to be selling drugs. They're not going to be hiding drugs. They're not going to be shooting because they know that we have police officers and fire department people working on every other block. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ostenberg?
Thank you. I think the issue of residency is one that comes up regularly, and it's a very difficult issue to talk about because I've worked in environments where residency is required, and I know that for some people it's a hardship. They want to perform the job, but it really is a hardship in terms of either picking up and relocating their family, perhaps losing an investment, especially in today's housing market. And those are really critical things because in many cases what ends up happening is you lose quality personnel because they don't want to make that change. And so, while we've always encouraged residency and we've actually put some incentives in place at different times, we've had a program, for example, at one time where if someone moved into the Eastgate neighborhood, they they would get the house at a reduced rate if they were a policeman or a fireman. We had another program with the rental property where, in fact, they were given an apartment to live there. But, you know, it all depends on the circumstances and the individual officer. And we have to also keep in mind that police officers sometimes, you know, they get entangled in situations where the potential for retaliation is there. And that's one of the reasons why they have negotiated in their contract this right for them to live in another community, because, you know, they're worried about their families also. Now, all that being said, I don't think there's any question that the services that our police and fire and paramedics perform in the village is outstanding. I mean, we had a situation this past summer twice where my wife, we had to call the medics for her. Thank God that everything worked out okay. But I can tell you that I was so very impressed with their professionalism. And a police officer came to the house first. You know, so I don't know that I want to roll back on the professionalism. The case with the officer, with John Rana, you know, my mother lives at Victory Center. I was very familiar with that circumstance. I think in the trial it came out that Mr. Rana was offered medical care that the doctor at Christ Hospital said would have saved his life, and he refused it. So there were a lot of other dynamics that were involved, a lot of threats that had been taking place with other residents of the complex. So I'm not sure that I would condemn that officer. I'm glad that the court did not.
Thank you. We'll have the next questioner to please step forward. State your name, sir, and your address. 30 seconds to ask your question.
Sam Santora, 50 Money Road, Park Forest. Most of the previous questioners have sort of taken the wind out of my sails, so I'm relegated to one of my secondary questions.
That's fine.
Hate to pick on you, Mr. Brown, but
I love it. Let's go.
You are the challenger. Mr. Brown, you mentioned a community center, and I would love to see one. How would we pay for it?
This is a question for Mr. Brown.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, basically the monies and funds that we're always talking about that we get here in Park 4 as far as grants, which we have a terrific staff that always focus on the grants and things of that nature. But we also could look at the private sector as well. Right now, becoming village president, that's not my top priority. My top priority is bringing businesses to deal with the taxes. And then just like this gentleman asked, is to try to do the renegotiation of the police and the fire department contracts where when they get hired, they will have a resident requirement here. What else was your question? I'm sorry.
It was just, how are we going to pay for it?
Oh, right, pay for the community center. And like I say, once the people come in here, the fire department and the police department, if they're living in these houses, like I say, that go to tax rolls. I mean, the houses that are being put back on the tax roll, which will bring more money. And then we have to have outside sources instead of saying what other villages and other representatives or whoever not doing anything. We have to want to be partnershiping with these different outside agencies instead of, or not just agencies, other villages. And the staff that we have, I'm totally impressed with them. I would encourage them and wherever I can help as far as getting grants and once again looking at the private sector to create the building. The people are asking for a community center. I'm not saying that it's going to happen overnight, and I'm not saying that it should happen soon. We have other things that we have to deal with: safety, taxes, and businesses. Those will be my first main goals.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. And the candidates, I wish to remind you that there is no rebuttal. However, if you wish to rebut or respond to any question that's asked of any of the other candidates, you certainly may do so by incorporating the same in your answer to a question or in your closing statement. Next questioner. Good
Thanks.
afternoon,
My name
sir.
is Nick Battaglia, 13 Bailey Road.
Thank you.
Thank you both for your public service. A question, we've mentioned a couple times professionalism in Park Forest. I think that's critical for us to find a path forward. I wonder if each of you is prepared to pledge today that you won't permit anyone related to you by marriage or by blood to be on the village payroll. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. This is a question for both candidates, and we'll start with you, Mr. Brown. And no one is picking on you, sir. It's just that I have the order and arrangement already set up.
I love it because I want the people to understand and know who I am. I think a lot of people have some pre-notions of who they think I am, and there have been some false advertisement And we are watching everything closely. I do have attorneys that are waiting for defamation of character. So as far as professionalism is concerned, my wife is an officer for a bank. That it's not non-for-profit and it's not a volunteer bank, just in case anyone want to know. And it's a bank that's been in the, and don't want to get a name of it because I don't want a newspaper to show up there, but it's an African-American owned bank, and she left a bank downtown Chicago, and she's good at what she do. Dash is too young. He's 5 years old, so he wouldn't be looking for a job here. And my daughter, Jade, she's still dealing with education. Myself, if I win, or when I win, should I say, village president, it's impossible for me to work for the village. So my family is cut out of it. The rest of my brothers and sisters, I have people that work for Homeland Security, a detective for the Chicago Police Department, registered nurses, and things like that. My family have absolutely no expectations of coming to Park Forest to look for any type of employment. They're doing pretty well.
Thank you. Mr. Ostenberg.
Well, the Village of Park Forest does have a very strong anti-nepotism policy, which we have in effect, and we follow it pretty clearly. A good example of it, I think, was just recently where an individual served on the Plan Commission, was an outstanding contributor to the Plan Commission, did a really good job. His wife was elected to the village board. When his term came up, we thanked him for his service, but there was no reappointment because that's contrary to our policy. We extend it even in terms of staff members, that if a staff member there's family members of staff members, except in rare circumstances where perhaps they were hired at a different time and under a different circumstance and were promoted to a different department. But otherwise, we try to keep individuals out of the same department. And in police and fire, we have an excellent police and fire commission. Our chairperson of the Police and Fire Commission is right here, Maddie Allen. But they have done an outstanding job of evaluating the candidates and making sure that they are hired based upon their abilities and not on who they know. We like to just repeat the mantra in Park Forest over and over. It's not who you know, it's what you know. And I think it has made our community a unique community for a number of years. People occasionally will call me and say, I need a job. And what I'll say is that, here's the person on staff that handles applications. Get your application in, and next time something comes up that you're qualified for, I'm sure they will call you and let you be interviewed or whatever. But there's no preferential treatment given to somebody because they know someone or they're related to someone.
Thank you. Next questioner, please. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
State your name, address, and you have 30 seconds to ask your question.
My name is Susan Berzali. I live at 320 New Salem, Park Forest. Mr. Brown, my question is for you. You brought up ways to reduce the taxes in town by, having the police officers and firefighters live in Park Forest. The ways that you presented to reduce taxes relied on something else to happen. Example, the police to come in, getting businesses to come in, that kind of thing. And yet you feel that you can find ways for a community center. How will you prevent what happened in Madison to happen in Park Forest?
This is a question for Mr. Brown, correct?
Mr. Brown.
Mr. Brown.
You will have to elaborate on what happened in Mattison. I know that my son plays ball over there through a bitty ball of Park Forest, and it's a fantastic facility. I know that they have, I think, 300 basketball teams, which I would have to ask my wife how much do we pay for them, but it's not inexpensive. We pay a nice penny for them to play. So if you do multiplication, saying there's 10 guys on a team, you multiply 10 times 100 or 200 or however much it is, and then you multiply that times 300, they bringing money in. Once again, I would dare not put down another community on saying what I would do. I'm not going to compare Park Forest or what we do here saying Matson is not doing this or they lost this or they lost that. The only focus that I want to have is what do I want Park Forest, how do I want Park Forest to be a better community?
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Next questioner, please. Good Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
State your name and address, and you have 30 seconds to ask your question.
Yes, my name is Katie Armstrong. I live at 445 Wildwood Drive in Park Forest. What will you do to make certain that our entire $7.5 million police force of all skin colors and all places of residence are trained to be experts in nonviolent crisis intervention?
This is a candidate. This is a question for both candidates.
Candidates.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. We'll start with you, sir. And again, sir, please understand. I have the format and questions and responses set up.
He's never went first, but that's beautiful. I'm okay with it.
All righty.
How do we make the police department basically take measures that are safe, more safety than?
No, I want the training.
Yeah.
For all of them.
Yeah. I believe that the training is there. I mean, situations happen, and the situation that happened that people, it was a horrible situation. I believe it was a horrible situation on both parts. I think the person who became the victim, well, actually, I think it was two victims. It was a horrible situation. I think that the police department that we have here, I take my hat off to them. Every officer that I have met, I'm totally impressed with how they handle themselves, with their professionalism and things of that nature. I wish I had a magic wand and could have took back the situation that has happened, but I can't. As far as the training, there you just can't get too much training. I would definitely like to be involved as the village president to see how can we improve training or where we could improve training so errors like that won't happen again. I could tell you this, that's something that I would definitely have hands on, because with the police department or any other department that we have, I know we have a village manager who runs the day-to-day operation, but I would want to be visible with the police department and with any other department that we have. I think presence means everything. Visibility is everything. And I don't think the visibility has really been shown. And I would definitely have a say-so if I think that our police department, fire department, or whoever could do something better, or just like I've brought other projects here that all got voted down saying, hey, let's take a look at this. Even though it made sense financially and everything else, it wasn't adhered to because of who it came from. And I think that's one of the places where the village is suffering at.
Thank you. Mr. Ostenberg?
Well, first of all, we do an extensive amount of ongoing training of police officers on a regular basis. And the incident that occurred with Mr. Rana, unfortunately, that was a non-violent, non-lethal approach that was taken. That's what was recommended. And that was one of the points that came out in the trial, where the expert witness who actually trains police officers in non-lethal actions pointed out that they were doing the right things. With a lot of unfortunate circumstances that occurred at the time relative to how the individual was acting and his age and a number of things like that. But the fact of the matter is they weren't going in there. I was just at a situation recently where I was speaking with a gentleman whose daughter was a police officer, and he said to me, in that circumstance, what my daughter had been trained to do was when somebody comes at you with a knife, no matter what age they are, you shoot them. And we didn't take that approach, obviously. We took the approach of how do we try to disarm this individual in a way that he doesn't cause harm to himself and he doesn't cause harm to any other individual. Now, we can always increase the training, and we have ways of doing that. That's one of those areas where, when we go to Washington each year on our lobbying trip, we look for money for how can we get grant funds that can be used in police officer training. It used to be that there were a lot of dollars available under what's called the COPS program. Some of that money has kind of dried up. And the unfortunate thing is, and all you got to do is look at the news in Chicago, we don't have as many crises to where we can qualify for some of those dollars, because you can't just go in and say we want the money. They look at the statistics. How many shootings did you have in your community? How many break-ins? How many armed robberies? All of those kinds of things. That's what the grants are contingent upon. And so if you have a community where your statistics aren't high in that regard, Or if, in fact, as they have occurred in the village where the statistics have gone down, you're not going to qualify for the funds, unfortunately.
Thank you very much. Next questioner. Yes, sir. Good afternoon, sir.
Hello.
State your name and address. 30 seconds to ask your question.
I'm Milton Moses, currently reside in 12 Abbey Lane, Park Forest, Illinois, since the year of 2000. My question is for Mr. Brown. When I was younger, because my family has been here since 1983, and I remember the great mall of Park Forest, and it was like one of the best experiences of my life. The fountain, Marshall Fields, everything. And now that it has failed, I want to know, how will we bring like the plan, an actual plan of bringing new businesses here and retain the businesses that we still have to this day?
This is a question for Mr. Brown?
Correct.
Thank you. Mr. Brown?
Glad to hear that question. Once again, and just like the gentleman said, that Park Forest was the mecca of malls. Originally, it was 3 malls, and one was here in Park Forest, the other one was on the East Coast, and I believe the other one was in Canada. So we have a great location, and I don't understand why people keep saying that the location that we have is bad. This is the mecca of malls. And outside of that, we still have the Lincoln Highway and the Western. Right now, we have Country Squire. What we have to do, and this have to be immediate, we have to deal with, once again, outside sources to bring some businesses that will complement that grocery store and the entertainment environment that we have already, which is Donnigan's and the Sapphire Club, Tall Grass, Freedom Hall, where that's outside, but it's still basically in the general area. We have to anchor businesses. I mean, we have to use these anchor businesses that we have and pull other businesses in now. What I'm saying routinely, this is what I do on an everyday basis. I'm dealing with employers on a day-by-day basis. We have to hit certain numbers day by day. If we don't deal with certain businesses and supply a certain amount of jobs, they close my company down. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I can't talk about if we don't get anybody hired, we're going to put them in land bank or anything like that. We have to focus on jobs, and we have to focus on dealing with businesses and people who are entrepreneurs, even to help those people with businesses. So to answer the question is continue to build relationships, show them what Park Forest have to offer, show them that this is the great community that we have. This community have welcomed my family and myself here. They, no matter how much negative publicity that was put out, the people still voted me in, and I need to show that to the outside people of Park Forest.
Thank you very much. Next questioner, please. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Bill Brzali, 320 New Salem. This is going back to the residency for both candidates.
Thank you.
And although the police and fire department, there should be some parity between them. With the police department, there are special circumstances, particularly since we don't live in Mayberry anymore. Would you insist that your son or daughter live in close proximity to their clients, particularly saying how we don't live in Mayberry anymore, and we've had some residents flushed out here that the police department is very tough trying to take care of. But that's the question. Close proximity, would you insist?
Thank you. This is a question for both candidates, and we'll start first with Mr. Brown.
Okay. We're not living in Mayberry. I got a problem with that, but I'm going to let that one slide. Would I have a son or daughter where I want them to live where they work at? My question is, it would make common sense for you to live close to where you work by. I work downtown, and I didn't want to take the commute. But because of what they was paying, this when I was working for Citibank, by the way, which is not a non-for-profit company. But I didn't want to make the commute, but that's where they were paying the most money, and it was in the field that I chose to go into. I wanted to move downtown, but the astronomical leasing and buying was ridiculous, and there's no parking and things like that. Would I have wanted to move there? Of course I would have. So once again, if my son or daughter, I think people, when they move places, they have a couple reasons why they move places. Education for their kids, and the commute that they have to go to work. I don't think that there's anyone that says, I'm going to live on this side of town and I'm going to work on this side of town. I just don't think that happens. And last but not least, if a police officer, I mean this from the bottom of my heart, if a police officer is afraid of retaliation for making an arrest, he probably should be a mechanic or a grocer or something. He should not want to be a police officer. If he have a problem with retaliation, I deal with at the company that I deal with. I don't get only unemployed people jobs, but I deal with people who are coming back to the community who have been to prison. If these are not the people that I want to help, I should look for employment somewhere else. As simple as that. But if you're a police officer and write somebody a ticket and say, "Well, I live down the street, they could come and find me and kill me," you shouldn't be a police officer. And last but not least, they have this thing called Google that they could find out where you live, whether you live down the street or across town.
All right, thank you, Mr. Brown. Mr. Ostenberg.
Well, first of all, to answer your question, I think, it would probably be ideal in most situations if you lived right where you were working. I mean, that would be the ideal situation. I have a son who works for Northern Illinois University. His wife is a nurse at a hospital in that general area, and they live in DeKalb. They chose to do that because they're close. But I have a daughter in California who lives in Martinez, and she works for the Napa County court system, and it takes her more than an hour to commute. But because of economics and a number of other problems, she's not going to relocate to the Napa area, obviously. Our daughter in Chicago, she and her husband works for the Chicago Park District, so they have to live in the city. They have a residency requirement. They bought a home over near Midway Airport, which was in a neighborhood that they could afford, and they both have to commute a considerable distance to get to work each day, but they are living in the city because of the residency requirement, basically. But then their children have gone to the Chicago public schools, and they've been very happy with the city. I want to just touch on this question in terms of the police officer. I don't think any police officer is worried that somebody's going to kill them because they gave a parking ticket. I think the concern that's been expressed is the kinds of things that happen to their children in many cases, especially if there was a juvenile situation and individuals are in the same school or neighborhood with some of these kids. There have been circumstances in the past that have been less than pleasant for a family. And if you want the best in terms of your personnel, you want them to feel happy in the community where they're living and working. So if living in a community next door makes them more comfortable, they're going to do a better job here in the village of Park Forest. I firmly believe that. I think that, it's one of those, 10-second sound bites to talk about residency. But when you start to peel back the layers of the onion, it's not quite as great a deal as people think it is.
Thank you very much. Next questioner, please. Good afternoon, sir.
Hello.
State your name, address, and you have 30 seconds to ask your question.
Marvin Holman. I'm at 43 Indianwood Boulevard, Park Forest, Illinois. My question is, I've heard a lot of businesses. Park Forest is not business friendly and has a lot of ordinances that prevent businesses from advertising properly and things of that nature. What ordinances would you change to make Park Forest more business friendly, to bring in more tax dollars, to lower water bills and taxes and things of that nature? That's a question for both candidates.
Thank you very much. We'll start with Mr. Ostenberg.
Thank you, Judge. Actually, it's a very good question because just this past, let's see, about a year and a half ago, we were lucky to obtain a grant from CMAP, the Chicago Metropolitan Agency on Planning. As a result of that, we did some examination of our existing ordinances, and we actually have engaged with Grant Dollars, an outside consultant that is in the process of revising all of our ordinances. Now, not only in terms of finding out those things that may be antiquated antiquated, that are not consistent with what is needed in the community right now, business-wise or whatever. But we're also looking at things that have a different environmental impact. You know, when we adopted many of those ordinances and they got put into the book, you know, incidentally, the Code of Ordinances is about yay thick, but when they got put into that book, you know, circumstances were different. They were different in our community, they were different in the state, they were different in the greater Chicago region. So there's been some modification that we've had to undertake. And I think that the Plan Commission has reviewed some of these recommended changes just maybe middle of last week. The village manager approached me about, you know, we have on our ordinance books that we do not allow automobile dealers in residential neighborhoods. We have a situation of where there's an auto repair facility in a residential neighborhood, and the person who wants to buy that property wants to be able to sell used cars. Now, that's one of those situations where, you know, we could be accused of being not being business friendly if we say no, but we also have to take what the impact is on the neighborhood. And so what we will probably do in that circumstance is consult with the neighbors and see what the recommendation is that's forthcoming. But you got to remember that, again, it's a two-edged sword. Many of these ordinances were put in place because citizens wanted the kinds of protection that that ordinance provides. So if we're going to change that ordinance, we got to go back to the citizens and say, you know, are you really sure that you want this in your neighborhood or that neighborhood? As far as the signs go, we revised that a long time ago.
Thank you very much. Mr. Brown?
Well, just to hitchhike off the business that's on Illinois Street, the gentleman came in at a board meeting, and he have his business that is ready to sell, but there's a catch to it that the person want to be able to sell vehicles on that property. That's a mechanic shop, and the answer is no because of the ordinance that stand in place now, and this guy have been in business for 25 years. He's talked to his customers, and he went door to door. He mentioned it right here at the village meeting. He went door to door and asked the people in that community would they mind the sale of cars. Now, everyone want to say that we can't do this and taxes can't be down. Well, we already said we don't have to have the police to come here for whatever reason. Now we have a auto care place saying we can't sell cars on the same lot that they fix cars on. Even though the guy that's been there for 25 years have talked to each one of his customers and have went door to door talking to the neighbors. And I don't know if you understand the sales tax that you get that the village will receive from auto sales. It's astronomical. But this is something that has been on the books since, if not the late 40s, the early 50s or something like that. Once again, going back to the signs, that none of the businesses here are able to show, put signs at the size that they want because of an ordinance that have been out since the 40s or 50s. Times has changed since then. If they want to put up a sign for advertisement or to say we do this free or you get that, they have to put in for a permit, and they only could last for 30 days out of a whole entire year. Or you could split it up and have 15 days here and 15 days, but it could be a maximum of 30 days. If these people want to buy a permit, that means that helps their business. So why would you limit a business that's trying to help itself for 30 days than year round?
Thank you very much, Mr. Brown. Next questioner, please. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Hi. I think the question I had.
State your name, please, and
my
your
name
address.
is Maddie Allen, and I live at 404 Rutledge Street in Park Forest. In the area where you were talking about the car repair place, I can't imagine. First of all, no one that I know in my area was asked about a car dealership coming into the area. People that I know in the area, I doubt seriously that they would say, yes, bring them in. I doubt that seriously.
I live in the area. I said yes.
The question has not yet been asked, Mr. Brown.
Okay. But my question basically was, and you've touched on that a bit.
30 seconds,
Okay.
ma'am, to ask your question.
Forget it. That's okay. Thank you. That's all right.
What is your question, ma'am? We're not going to deprive you the right to ask your question. You are limited with respect to time. 30
Okay.
seconds.
My question was just basically, what kind of ordinances would the businesses that are coming in, what kind of Park Forest existing ordinances are they asking to have changed? And you
This
did
is a
touch
question
on
for both candidates or for an individual
that.
candidate?
For Mr. Brown.
For Mr. Brown. Mr. Brown.
The question is, they want to be able to sell cars on the lot. That's the ordinance. Whatever is preventing them from being able to sell automobiles on a commercial lot, that's the bill that they want to be lifted. And I live in the same area, and I'm not the only person that have had this feeling that it's okay for a car care place to sell a car. Actually, if you really look at it, every time they fix a car, they sell it. You know, you bring a car in and it's not working, and the mechanic fix it, you pay them, you buying the car back. So, I mean, you know, look at it for what it look at it for. And long story short is, I'm here as a person who care about this community. And there's some prejudgments that are in this room, and that has, you know, when it comes to voting time, we'll see. I'm okay. Hopefully we have people in here that are open-minded and that want to make some change and see a person that works hard and who take care of his family. If I wasn't doing this, you'll say, hey, why he not doing something positive? I take care of my family. I create jobs for people. I have relationships with businesses. And I could keep going on and on about the kids' lives that I have saved and so forth and so on. So getting back to the original question, what do they want to have lifted? The ordinances that say you can't sell a car. And people in the neighborhood, I don't know why the guy would come up here and lie and say that he went door to door. But I want to support this guy in opening up his shop, and if he could make sales when he have other cars lined up there, instead of fixing this one, he just sell that one. I see absolutely no problem with that. He'll bring a tremendous amount of tax dollars into the town.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we want to give each candidate an opportunity to present a closing statement, so we're going to have those persons. No. If you're standing over there, you'll be given an opportunity to ask a question. But if you're not over there, we're going to move on to have open closing statements. Good afternoon, sir.
Yes, sir.
State your name and your address. And you have
Roy
30 seconds to
Dillard,
ask your question.
216 Rich Road, and I want to thank both of the candidates for running. My question is not only for you guys, you gentlemen, but it's for everybody in here.
Well, I don't know if we're going to give them an opportunity.
Well, they definitely don't have to answer it. But however, I want to get an opinion on what they would do in terms of, we have a brand new store in Park Forest. A few years ago, we had a brand new store in Park Forest. We can't afford to lose it. This goes for everybody in here. I just want to know, what are your creative ideas in terms of keeping this store?
Thank you. We'll start with Mr. Ostenberg.
Thank you, Judge. Actually, we've worked very hard with the owner of the store to figure out ways that he needs to enhance his opportunities to serve more customers. It's kind of unfortunate that the previous store that was brought in and didn't last very long at all, they actually cut down the space pretty significantly. There's a lot of open space over on the produce side, the deli, the meat section, but then when you get to the grocery side, it's pretty confined. I think that one thing that, just based upon the feedback that I've gotten from the owner and from some of the people in the store, that probably there's going to have to be some adjustments so that more grocery space can be devoted within the store that will accommodate the needs of our residents more easily. Because right now you can kind of race around the tables in the produce area. You get over into the grocery section and it's hard to find, and they don't even have room for some things that they would like to sell. It's a very good grocer, I have to say that. I think that the exploration that was done by our staff in going to Wisconsin, to Milwaukee, seeing his 5 stores there, the fact that we all for years were familiar with Country Squire in Chicago, Chicago Heights when he bought Country Squire. You know, we saw how he operated that store during that period. So it looked very much like, you know, he's the kind of person who can be successful. We've been very pleased with the fact that we already are drawing in some residents from other communities. And that's crucial to the well-being of the store. Because in any store, I don't care where you go to Waltz, go to Jewel in Homewood or in South Heights, and who do you see in that store? You don't just see people who live in that town. You see people who come from a variety of towns and shop in that location. So we need as much as possible to encourage our neighbors to also make use of it, our own citizens and our neighbors. And hopefully as time goes on, just like Country Squire was able to do in Chicago Heights for over years and years, they'll create an identity that people will want to go to, like Waltz does. So it's a destination location. That's going to be the key to success.
Thank you very much. Mr. Brown.
Once again, what I've already started doing, I don't have to talk about what has happened or what's going to happen. I've already have put employment opportunities in place where my company, I picked the employees, I put them through a training, and my company paid their salary for 30 days. And if the match is not correct, we'll pull that person out and put another person in. It's all about economics. If that's not effective in helping the employer with the overhead costs, I don't know what could be. After that is going right back to what the gentleman said about the old ordinances. Allow the store that's in that whole entire strip mall to be able to put some type of signage on Orchard Drive so it could bring people, because the store and everything that's over there sits so far back. If you're not familiar with the area and you're going down Orchard Drive, you could easily just drive right past it. So I think it's very important for us to lift these ordinances and be able to put the signage on Orchard Drive so people could see so it could be visible. And if you do that, and if you continue to get good quality employees, keeping the overhead down for the management, and also start using that now as an anchor resource for that area, and start tagging businesses on immediately and saying, hey, we have a store here, let's build off of it. I think that will be the way to go. So just as a review, we're looking at employment, we're looking at overhead, we're looking at signage, and we're looking at bringing other businesses in to use Country Squire as an anchor.
Thank you. Is there another question? If not, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to, thank you, we're going to wrap up this portion of the forum by giving each candidate an opportunity to present a 2-minute closing statement. Is there a question or a problem, no timing or anything? Too late. Okay, whatever is too late.
No, I was going to go over, but I thought all those people sitting over there were ahead of me to ask questions.
Well,
and they weren't.
All right. So, sir, do you wish to ask a question?
Yes, I do.
Why don't you ask the question?
Yes, I will.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. How do you do? My name is Robert McCrae. I live at 126 Indiana in Park Forest for the past 41 years. I have a question for both candidates. In terms of the questions that you have to answer, is it a feature or a must-do thing to resort to prevarication? This is something I'd like to know because I've heard a bunch of lies in the last 2 debates. This is for both candidates.
This is a question for both candidates, and if you can understand what that word means, you can go ahead and answer the question. We'll start with Mr. Brown.
For all those attending, prevarication is a stretching of the truth. It's a nice way to say somebody told a GD lie.
All right, Mr. Brown.
Now, what does GD mean? I don't know about what my fellow colleagues speak of, but whenever I come up here, I speak the truth. And I talk about most of the things that I have accomplished. I haven't talked about things that the reason why this didn't work or that didn't work or this village did this or this village did that. I talk about, like I say, with the stores and with the safety part, me mentoring kids, turning kids from gangsters to honor roll students, sending them out to college, getting people jobs. This is what I talk about. So, the other thing that I do talk about is that it's a lot. You're right. It's a lot of flat out lies that has happened, and I've talked about that too. That are by not nice newspapers that are biased and one-sided and full of lies. And if that is who you represent, then be my guest. You keep getting what you got. During the past, I mean, flat out lies that I was paying. That's this election. That I was paying senior citizens to vote for me in November for an election that is in April. That I was breaking in basically senior citizen homes after hours, going floor to floor, doing whatever I was doing. Last election, I was paying limousine drivers to bring people from Chicago Heights to come over here and vote. Then I was going to close down the co-ops, even though the mayor don't have the authority to close down co-ops. Then I was going to open the co-ops back up. And, I'm a homeowner, which is a good thing, but it's been turned negative against the co-op people. And just since you got up, you're the only person that thought that we should look for more inclusion with minorities on our police and fire department. Right, you're the only other trustee.
Time is up. Thank you, sir. Mr. Ostenberg.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Robert, for the question. I think sometimes when we sit at the dais for meeting after meeting after meeting, and we see how things are discussed and debated, and we see what the process has been and who has contributed what, and then we get into the campaign and we hear all this rhetoric, we do sometimes scratch our head and say, wait a minute, I don't remember that as being quite what occurred. And I think that's probably what you're alluding to. But the bottom line is that campaigns are always the same. We see them all the time. We see them at the national level. We see them at the state level. There's things that came out in the gubernatorial race that now we're seeing slightly different things being put in effect than what was told in the campaign. So, I never am kind of upset by the fact that I hear things in the campaign that I scratch my head over, but I do a lot of head scratching. I have to say that, in fact, with the situation involving the automobile dealership over in the East Lincolnwood area, the potential automobile dealership, the board has not turned that down. The staff has not turned that down. We're in the process of investigating it. The individual who is selling his property, he's not continuing the business, and he's not going to be the one selling the cars. He's moving his car repair business to another community. He wants to sell the property to somebody coming in to sell automobiles. That's what's going on. It's a completely different business. And we are in the process of looking into that, seeing whether if we did a public hearing with the neighbors, would they in fact raise considerable objection, or would we get some kind of an agreement from them? We can't rely on the person who's trying to sell the property to say, hey, everybody told us it's okay, because you can't rely on that. You know that. We all know that. So we have a process. We try to follow the process. And the fact of the matter is, sometimes that process extends for a period of time because you have to look and make sure that everybody, Oliver Wendell Holmes, when he was Justice of the Supreme Court, said, my right to swing my arm ends at the tip of the next guy's nose. And we got to remember that. We have all the freedom in the world until we impact upon somebody else negatively. The people who live in that neighborhood, they have a right.
Thank you, Mr. Ostenberg. All right, ladies and gentlemen, at this time we're going to move to giving each candidate an opportunity to present closing statements. And remember, ladies and gentlemen, to vote on Tuesday, April 2nd. We'll start then April 7th. I stand corrected. I'm looking at it and I said 2nd. Tuesday, April 7th. We'll start with closing statements in alphabetical order. So if you don't like the first letter of your last name, well. So we'll start with you, Mr. Brown. 2-minute closing statement,
Yeah,
sir.
before we start the time, usually, have we changed the rules here? Because usually if you start the opening statement, the closing statement is by the opposite person.
The alphabetical
so
order, sir.
It.
If you have 2 minutes to make your closing statement, Mr. Brown.
Okay. Once again, I've talked here, and the village of Park Forest have gave me a great opportunity, not only to bring my family here, but to also sit at this board. I love the people of Park Forest. They have welcomed my son, Dash, and my family as well. No matter how bad things get in the political world, I believe in people. And I've always had this term of endearment. Well, let me take that back. An old cliche that says, whatever you put out, you get back. And what goes around, come around. At the end of the day, Jerome Brown has worked relentlessly for his family and for this community. And that's why I got here. I've never been given anything, but I have been given the opportunity. I've never been given a chance, because chances are people don't know anything about you. But people see me in this community. I do not show up for whatever that we have in this village. I don't show up for a photo op and leave. I'm here the entire time with my family. And when you have a person that is continuing to put out lies and negativity, and that's a person that you want in the office, and I'm not even talking about John at this time. What I'm saying, that when a person continue to put out lies and negativity, what I say will go around, come around, you wonder why they're in and out of the hospital, because negative create negativity. I want to thank the people of Park Forest for giving me opportunity again and chance and welcoming my family and letting me support and create things in this community.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Mr. Eisenberg, 2-minute closing statement.
Thank you very much, Judge, and thank you for your excellent role as moderator. You always hold to the line, and I think we all appreciate that. I want to thank the National Congress of Black Women, Mamie, your fine organization, for sponsoring this, also Nurses Plus, and of course the Non-Partisan Committee, and the citizens of the community who came out for today's forum or watched it on television. I want to thank Jerome for pointing out that that was not I that he was talking about, because I haven't been in a hospital, I don't think, in 40-some years, so unless he knew something that I didn't. So that was one point that I appreciate the clarification. Serving as your mayor, your village president, is a role that I really am very grateful to the citizens of our community for entrusting to me. You know, I'm the 10th mayor in the village of Park Forest, and right now I've had the honor of being the longest serving. I've had the opportunity to serve as a village trustee 7 years, 2 years in the General Assembly, sent there by you, the residents of the community. I have always tried to give 100% of my abilities and talents to the job that I've undertaken. And I hope that the citizens of the community see that and will reward me by another term working with you. I think there are some things that probably most of the people in the community aren't aware of, but you know, as you gravitate in office and you come to know more people, you interconnect with various bodies. And when those bodies entrust responsibility to you, that speaks not only of me as the mayor, but that speaks of the village of Park Forest. I serve on 2 committees of the National League of Cities. I don't think there's another mayor in Northern Illinois that has that honor. You know, I serve on, I'm co-chairman of a committee of the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus. I serve on the executive board of the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus. These are positions that I was selected to fill by the people who are there, who are in that. I'm an officer of the South Suburban Mayors and Managers Association. I've been on the executive board of South Suburban Mayors and Managers for about 10 years. You know, I don't think any of my predecessor mayors had that kind of recognition given, but it's recognition of our community also, because they see that we're doing things right, so they invite me to be a part with them of the governance of those bodies. So I ask you for your vote to serve another term as your mayor.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a round of applause for both of our candidates for a very fine job. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a short recess now at this time so that we can have our 2 library board trustee candidates to come forward. So the nonpartisan committee will set the time limit for the recess, but we're taking a short recess. Thank you very much for your participation. Short recess.
Your Honor. Another good job.
Lady first.
He already has an order.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, if we can have you to please retake your seats so that we can get started with the next segment of the forum. Please, ladies and gentlemen, take your seats.
National Congress of Black Women.
National Congress of Black Women and Nurses Plus.
And Nurses Plus.
Should have wrote that down. Then you got the trustees after this?
Yes.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're now going to get started with the second segment of our forum. We're going to have our two library board candidates to present 5-minute statements to you. So we'll start at this time. Please be seated, ladies and gentlemen. We'll start with Ms. Felicia Rangel. And there are two candidates, Felicia M. Rangel and Eric Duval Rodman. Ms. Rangel, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. How are you?
You may start with 5 minutes, a 5-minute statement, ma'am. 5-minute presentation.
Okay. So I'd just like to say good afternoon to everyone, and also to thank the Non-Partisan Committee as well as the National Congress of Black Women and Nurses Plus for gathering us here this afternoon.
Ladies and gentlemen, may we please have your attention, please? Sorry, you may continue.
No problem. Can everyone hear me? Okay. I just want to reiterate, my name is Felicia Rangel, and I'm seeking election for Library Board Trustee. I'm currently serving a remainder of a term due to a vacancy. I was trustee also back in 2010 to 2012. First, a little background on myself. I am a resident of Park Forest since 1976, and graduate of Ritchie's High School, graduate of Prairie State College and St. Xavier's background. My background is in finance. I'm currently a payroll supervisor at Panduit Corp., and I've been there. This will be my 15th year there. My strengths are in financial analysis, budgets, training, and taxes. And following in my parents' footsteps, I did choose to remain in Park Forest, which I love this community so much. I've raised my family, and it has shaped me to be the person that I am. And the reason I'm running for trustee is because of my love for community and the love of the Park Forest Library. The Park Forest Library was my haven when we first moved to Park Forest. I was 10 years old. You can imagine as a preteen not knowing anyone, and so I was a very shy kid, and books were my friends. That's what I did. And so it was a place for me to escape and to think of possibilities, and even to this day, I think of library as the start, especially with our youngsters, as a place of shaping their creativity, the possibilities of what they can be and do in this world. And so my commitment is to give back and to continue that message and that mission to keep our libraries relevant. In the age of technology, we're used to a bricks and mortar library, and our libraries have changed over the years, but we want to keep that tradition as well as the advancement and growth of our libraries. So as our youth and even as adults, I think we need to get back to our libraries. So my commitment is to the library, and I want to give back to my community and serve as your library board trustee. So I just ask for your vote April 7th, and it's important that everyone come out and vote, but I truly, truly hope to retain being trustee again. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Rodman?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thank you, everyone, for coming out, and I, too, would like to thank the two organizations, Nurses Plus and the National
Congress of Black Women.
National Congress of Black Women.
Excuse me. Let's see. We got a lot in common here, me and Miss Rangel. Me and my family moved out here in '72. And so I got some history. I'm a homeowner, graduate of Ritchie's, graduate of Governor State, I do volunteer work. Oh, St. Mary's, too. That's in Park Forest. And like her, the library was a haven for me. I grew up with a family that reads, and that's where I discovered H.G. Wells and, you know, Tarzan books. And I still use it. And I bring my goddaughter to the new parts, and I like the growth of it. And I like to see the young children there because they are our future. And I know if they're in the library, they're not out doing mischief. We don't really have a community center like that, but a lot of parents know that their kids can do a lot in the library, and that's for a future for us. I want to give back to my community. I volunteered with PADS for the last 20-plus years. I believe in that. I've tutored at Matson Elementary. I just believe in this community because I've been a resident for so long, and I want to see it be successful. And that's the bottom line. And success starts with the children. The seniors and the rest of us have got it together because we're still here. So let's just help the next generation, and that's what I want to do. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, please remember to vote now on April 7th. Let's give our candidates for Library Board Trustee a round of applause. We're going to move right along, ladies and gentlemen, to the next segment of our forum, and we'll have our candidates for trustee to step forward and have a seat.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you. Congratulations. Good luck.
Thank you. Thank you.
Candidates for trustee seated. So we're going to start with this segment of our forum. Each candidate will be given an opportunity to present a 2-minute opening statement. Questions will be asked from the floor orally. You will not submit written questions. There will be no rebuttals. If any candidate wishes to respond to a question that was asked of another candidate, he or she may incorporate the answer or response in their response to a particular question, or they can take the liberty of including such a rebuttal in their 2-minute closing statement. At this time, we're going to start with opening statements by each candidate, and we'll give each candidate, and we'll start in alphabetical order. We'll give each candidate an opportunity to present a 2-minute opening statement, and we'll start first with Ms. Trustee Brandon.
Thank you. So I knew that once you said alphabetical order. Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to thank the National Congress of Black Women, the Park Forest Nurses Plus, and of course, most of all, the Non-Partisan Committee of Park Forests. It's because of that committee that we have the opportunity to speak to you in forums like that. I know some communities don't consider it to be the in thing these days, but I think there is still a lot of positiveness about having this opportunity. I was reflecting about what I was going to say, and it occurred to me that come next month, March, 49 years ago, my husband and son and I moved into Park Forest. I remember, if I can get this in 2 minutes, but I remember coming from the airport, having taken a nap a couple of times before we got here, because at that time there was no I-57. And I kept waking up seeing open fields, cornfields, and said to my husband, where in the world are you taking us? Because I'd not been here. The first year, I have to admit, it may have been longer than a year, I spent more time traveling back and forwards to Baltimore, either by plane or car, because this was new, very new. And, you know, I wasn't quite yet settled in. It wasn't home. I used to say, I'm going home. Today, when asked about going to visit, I'm going to visit Baltimore, and Park Forest is home. And that is a big difference. When my oldest son started school, that's when I became involved in Park Forest and realized that Park Forest was a community that I wanted my kids to get the most out of, and I wanted to be involved with them. And because of that involvement is why I've become your trustee and want to continue to be your trustee for the coming years. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Tiffany Graham. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon. First, I'd like to welcome all the residents who came out today and the ones that are watching on television. And I'd also like to thank the National Congress of Black Women for hosting this forum. I don't know about you, but I think this has been the best refreshments we've had in a long time. And I'd also like to thank the Non-Partisan Committee of Park Forest. They've done a good job of making these forums available to people who are running. My name is Tiffany Graham, and I'm running for village trustee because I can bring an infusion of energy and youth to the board. And I'm also motivated to bring change into our community, which is much needed. Growing up as a resident of Park Forest for more than 30 years, I've seen the best and the worst of Park Forest. I want to be a part of the team to revitalize Park Forest. I'm deeply invested in my community as a part of the Park Forest Youth Commission. I was part of a dynamic team that has put on several successful Youth Day events and also, most recently, the Park Forest Carnival. This endeavor brought in over $19,000 to our community. After expenses, the Youth Commission was left with an excess of over $12,000. So far, the Commission has been able to fund various activities for our youth, as well as creating 2 new scholarships for our youth as well. And by the way, if you know a student or if you are a student and you'd like to find an application for the Park Forest Scholarship, the application is on the website and also in the Discover magazine. And I'm also happy to say that I'm a member of the Park Forest Sustainability Committee, Park Forest League of Women Voters, as well as the Tallgrass Arts Association. I would like the opportunity to serve the community that has given so much to me by utilizing the skills that I have accumulating by being part of various organizations in our community.
Thank you. Okay. Next, we'll have a 2-minute opening statement by Gary Kopachinski.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank all of you for showing up, and thanks especially to the members of the National Congress of Black Women. Mamie Rogers, it's good to see this organization that you've been talking about and we've worked with through human relations for so long. To the Park Forest Nurses Plus, and to the Nonpartisan Committee for sponsoring this event. I'm Gary Kopachinski, and I am running for trustee. I have been a teacher at Marian Catholic High School since 1990. Graduated from the University of Notre Dame in 1985, earned my master's degree from Josephinum College in Columbus in 1992. My son James is 29, I have a beautiful daughter in La Sierra, and a busy investigative grandson named James Jr. Park Forest is our community in many senses of the word. Park Forest has always impressed me as a community that is open to many, many different types of people. The diversity, the community spirit, the culture, all speak of who we are. Because I am committed to harmonious community relations, I was active on the Human Relations Commission as soon as I moved to town until I was elected village trustee in 2003. Currently, I serve as board liaison to the Plan Commission and the Cable Commission. I started a business, a news organization I'm very proud of, E-News Park Forest. You may have heard of it. And I hope you hear more. People need to feel empowered. And when people come together in these organizations and others, we see how strong a community we have. And together we can be part of any solution. There are so many ways to get involved in Park Forest. This has always been our strength. I want to continue to serve as your trustee. And as I yield the floor, I look forward to this discussion and learning more. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee O'Neill?
Yes, I want to also start out by thanking the Park Forest Non-Partisan Committee, the National Congress of Black Women, thank you, Mamie, and the Nurses Plus, and thank Ray Funderburk for serving as our moderator. My name is Georgia O'Neill, and I was appointed in 2006 to finish out another trustee's term, but have successfully been elected to 2 full terms and now seeking to be elected to a 3rd full term. And I want to apologize to anyone who was in here and heard my opening statement last time. I did chop it up a little, but some of the same information, because I think we're supposed to tell you about ourselves. Family, I put it in 3 categories. As a 45-year resident of Park Forest, and I too came from Baltimore, my late husband Marty and I raised 3 children in the village. Terry is chaplain for the Lamont Police Department. Kathleen, who lives in Nashville, was presented last year the Entrepreneur of the Year Award. And Johnny, who is a lifelong resident of Park Forest, sometimes serves as my handyman and assistant. My background, I have an extensive history with Park Forest, having served as executive director for 6 years of the Park Forest Chamber of Commerce, as well as manager of 2 regional chambers that serve Park Forest, a total of 22 years of Chamber of Commerce management. I have also served as director of public relations and marketing for the Center of Park Forest for 3 years. I'm a member of the Park Forest Historic Society's Hall of Fame. In 1996, the Park Forest JCs recognized me as Citizen of the Year. My last category is gold, and I just want to say, before I say that those of you who come to the 3rd forum, you'll hear all different comments from me. As a continuing trustee, I will work hard for you through the ongoing efforts that our village team has made to enhance our blessings and our benefits, namely our people, our cultural riches, and our many diverse services and amenities. I will help to preserve those benefits so that Park Forest becomes even more a great place to live, grow, and discover. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Vanderbilt.
First, I'd like to say thank you to the National Congress of Black Women for hosting this event in cooperation with Nurses Plus, and for the nonpartisan local government in Park Forest for making this all happen. And being a past board member, I know how hard it can be at times, and thank you. Just one point of order. The mayor and village trustee. In the books, there's a $4 million Department of Public Works and Recreation Parks maintenance facility that's going to be built in 4 years. So when we talk about money that's going to be spent on buildings, let's just remember that it's already in the books to spend $4 million. Just wanted to point that out. All right, why am I running for office? My son is a 5th-generation Park Forester. 29 Apache is where my great-grandfather, Darren, built his house. And in 5 years, that house will not be there anymore because of what Park Forest has become. We can do better. We are not standing out amongst our communities. Even though we've done better than, yes, some of these local communities who have spent money, big money, on building recreation centers and funding things that they didn't have money to fund in the first place and are losing businesses, we are not standing out. And we need to do something to stand out. We have a sustainability plan that's making us known nationally, right? We're looking for grant money to help us. But what are we doing to help us, the citizens? I want to start a neighborhood redevelopment initiative where we will have money from the village being funded directly from the gaming lottery that we now have within the village, and use those funds to help with the redevelopment initiative, to where there's homeowners in Park Forest that need just that little help on the exterior of their house to really make it look better to our neighborhood. The only way we're going to raise our property values is to start making Park Forest look better. And to when neighbors come through and when people come through and say, you know, where are we going to live next? They're going to say, oh, look at all these houses. They're upkept. They're maintained. Right now, they're not. Thank you. My time is up.
Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, at this time, we'll start with an open forum and have you to ask questions of the candidates. You will not submit written questions, as we have done in the past. Questions are to be presented orally. So those of you who have questions, we're going to ask you to move to the west wall, and we'll start with the first questioner. Good afternoon.
Yes, that's me. My name is Al Sturgis. I live at 6 Chestnut Court. And my question is what you as trustees think about the council manager form of government that we have, and specifically who directs the village staff, and what is the trustees' role with respect to village staff activities?
Thank you very much. We'll start with Trustee Brandon.
Thank you. I actually, that is the government that I've known, and I actually think for Park Forest it works. It has worked and it continues to work. The way the things go, the board and mayor develop the policies and ordinances, and then we in turn also select the village manager. The village manager is the one who's responsible for making sure that all of the things that the board and mayor have set up to be achieved get done. He is the one that's responsible for hiring all of his staff. The staff that he's not responsible for hiring are our safety staff, our police and fire staff. Those go through our fire and police commission. But that's the way our government works. And it has worked well, and I think it really, I'm in favor of continuing the style of government that we have.
Thank you. Ms. Graham?
I agree with the way that the form of government that we have in Park Forest. I think that it works for us, just like Trustee Brandon said. It's something that works for Park Forest. It's not just there's a mayor just making all the decisions. There's not just the trustees that are making all the decisions. All the decisions are being made as a group, and I can't tell you, okay, I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do that. I can't do it by myself because it's a group of people that all have to agree. And what was the second part of the question? Or was there a second part of the question?
What was the second part of the question, questioner?
It's really what is the role of the trustees with respect to the village staff?
Ma'am?
I think that Trustee Brandon actually went over this with everybody and told us exactly what's the mayor and the trustees hire the village manager, and the village manager hires the rest of the staff to take care of our community. That's my answer.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Kopachinski.
Thank you, Judge. The council manager form of government, I think, I think it has served us very well. I cannot hire anybody. None of my colleagues on the board, including the mayor, cannot hire. We can hire no one, except for the village manager. And then we also move to accept the appointment of the village attorney when the mayor may make such a recommendation. So what we avoid, and I don't need to mention towns, but I've spoken to many people through the years. I have friends who work in other towns, and When election time comes up, they get their marching orders and they're going door to door. When a new mayor is elected, the police force turns over and a new chief may be appointed. That doesn't happen here. Our role as trustees with respect to all of this is, first off, to evaluate the manager and make sure that our policies, that our ordinances, and the things that we have put in place, the strategies, et cetera, are being upheld. So one of the policies we enacted a few years ago was that as much as possible, we don't want to do any new borrowing. That as much as possible, we want to pay as we go along. And so in line with that, our staff learned an incredible amount as to how to apply for grants and to be ready whenever new grant opportunities surface. So the separation between the board and the day-to-day goings-on in the village, I think, is very important.
Thank you. Ms. O'Neill?
Yes, the council manager form of government is the one that I'm most familiar with because in my years with the Chamber of Commerce, that is the type of structure that we had as well. And so I'm very comfortable with that, and especially in this situation throughout my 8 years as a trustee, it works very well. And the board, we are the policy makers. We make the goals, and we do see to it that they are being carried out. We do hire the village manager, and I think we did a darn good job because he does a darn good job. And Tom oversees the entire staff. It is, again, his responsibility and his call to hire all the staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Vanderbilt.
To put it in perspective, the council manager form, maybe against a local neighboring town of ours, there's an aldermanic form of government. And that aldermanic is where a region is represented by an alderman. So that alderman only represents that small constituency. Whereas here in Park Forest, in the council manager, every sitting trustee represents every one of you in Park Forest, represents every person that is that wants to have an elected official, that's a voter, a registered voter. You have the right to choose every one of these trustees sitting here. If you're in an aldermanic form of government, you have no choice in anyone outside of your precinct, outside of your district. So just put that in perspective. Now, with Park Forest, I think we've done a great job. And when our founders decided to do this form of government, they decided to do this because it leaves out nepotism. It leaves out cronyism. You're not going to hire family members. There's no way possible right now. That's what they decided to do, because when they looked at some of these local governing bodies next to us, there was nepotism and cronyism. And that's what they saw, and that's why they decided the council manager form of government. Now, as a role as trustee, the biggest role is to convey what the goals are to the village and to actively participate on the commissions. Every village trustee is to be sitting on a commission and to represent the board's ideas to those commissions. So thank you.
Thank you. We'll have the next questioner, please. Good afternoon, ma'am. Please state your name and your address. You have 30 seconds to ask your question.
Kim Elmore Perkins, 164 Hemlock. My question is for all trustees. The Park Forest has
candidates for trustees.
Thank you. Candidates for trustee. Park Forest has vast housing stock. We have homes, we have cooperatives, we have condominiums, we have rentals, and we have townhomes. My question is, how will you as trustees help to support some of the needs of the condominiums that are in Park Forest? I hear a lot of talk about vacant homes, vacant properties. The condo associations are suffering as much, if not more. And how do you think you could help to support those condominiums in revitalizing their areas, their condos, and income so that we can do more?
30 seconds, ma'am. Thank you. We'll start this round of answers with Ms. Graham.
To me, I like it better when we can read the questions so that I can go over the question again. As of right now, I am not a trustee, and I cannot tell you the relationship that the village has, the board has with the condo association. And I'm really not sure, so I don't want to give you an answer that I'm not sure about.
Thank you. Mr. Kopachinchi?
Thank you, Your Honor. Kim, where'd you go? Hi. I want to thank you for the question, and you have been this has been an issue that you have kept before us for many, many years, going back. The housing crisis was horrible across the country, and it impacts every one of the vast types of housing places in Park Forest. And I would say it, looking at maps that we've seen, almost equally in every neighborhood. I think we want to continue our dialogue with you. I know that the manager, Tom Mick, has reached out to you. You've reached out to him. If at all, we do have neighborhood meetings. Perhaps we need to set one up just with the condo associations and invite them. But the idea of turning around a problem that was thrown in our laps nationally by irresponsible bankers and whatnot, on the local level, I hate to say this, but we need to do everything possible to support each other. I don't know at this point, and I apologize for that, but I don't know at this point what special programs might exist for condominiums and condo associations, and perhaps that's something that we as a village, that our staff can research and help you with.
Thank you. Ms. O'Neill?
Well, the housing situation in general, I kind of look at as an onion. There's so many layers, so many, and it's almost an impossible task to get to the core of it. However, Kim spoke specifically about condominiums, and the two M words that came up right away in my head, and Gary actually mentioned one of them, meeting and marketing. And yes, Kim has done a wonderful job of bringing some of those issues to light. And I think a meeting with condominiums, whether it is a neighborhood meeting or just a specific meeting where we do meet with either all the condominiums or each in turn. Marketing, we could possibly, don't know if, if it would help, but do articles in the Discover, on our Discover magazine, on specific, again, condominiums. So again, meeting and marketing was what came up right away. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Vanderbilt.
I'm not going to stop just at condominiums or cooperatives. We're talking about the entire Park Forest. We're talking about houses that are in blight. We're talking about cooperatives that are a very high number of unoccupancy rates. Let's just go over some numbers here. Stagnant population over the past 6 years. School enrollment is down. Unemployment rate is higher than it was in 2005. There's been a 15% decrease in property value since 2004 in commercial and residential properties. We've got to do something. And one of the things I'd like to put forward is my neighborhood redevelopment initiative to help those houses that are just in blight, to get that extra lift on the exterior of their house, to get it up and making it look better, to have some efficacy in our neighborhood again, to make people proud to say you live in Park Forest. You know, if we also look at some other things, our water, we've been paying double since 2005. Since 2005, you're paying triple in your sewer fees. As more people leave our community, those rates are going to go up. We have to do something to keep people in and to bring people in. All right? We've got to start looking at other initiatives. One of the things I was pushing big for the past couple of years is if you have an empty, vacant property or lot, you can go to the village and you can put a garden in that empty lot and you can maintain it and you'll get reimbursed for maintaining that lot. This is another initiative that you as a community, you could get a block together and start a community garden right there in your neighborhood. And when you complain about all the trash that's there, you'll have a difference. You'll make that difference. When the teenagers are walking down, and this is the new thing right now, saggy pants to get on them. When you see them walking down with saggy pants, invite them to come over and work with you. That's what I did at my garden in Algonquin Street. I picked a bad neighborhood for a reason. I didn't care because I know this town. And when people came by, they wanted to help, because they saw the fruits of their labor. They were able to get vegetables in a couple of weeks later.
All right, thank you, sir. Time is
Thank
up.
you.
Ms. Brandon?
I'm going to get back to the original question. Yes, there are many layers to our housing, and we've had partnerships that we've developed to address, I would say, the majority of those issues. And I have to admit, in terms of the condos, that has been an issue that we've been having difficulty with. We've been able to develop a, I would say, relatively strong relationship with the various townhomes that we have. Help me, cooperatives. I'm sorry, with the cooperatives. But the condos are different. While it's the same building, it's a different setup. They are allowed to do things like sublet. That is not allowed in the condos, and that in itself presents a problem when you as an owner have a particular agreement and then you're allowed to sublet that to a person. That person may not be capable or the desirable, that person may contribute to some of the issues that are already in that particular area. So I think what I feel that we need to do is to develop a better relationship, perhaps a special committee or a commission to look at some of the issues that specifically are condo-oriented, and to also explore if there are different types of initiatives or grants or programs or things that can be utilized in dealing with the issues that are specific to the condominiums.
Thank you. We'll continue now with the next questioner.
Sam Santora, 50 Mooney Road. As I walk through the village, I live at the south end of the village, I am always appalled at the number of properties I see, and I'm not talking about abandoned properties. I'm talking about houses that are presently lived in. They are, some of the cases, a pigsty. I assume that there's an ordinance on the books that says keep up your properties, because in my recent water bill, it said we're sending out the village police, not the police, but you know what I mean, and make sure that everything is is kept up. What can you do to make sure, thank you, sir, what can you do to make sure that these ordinances are enforced?
Thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
We'll start this round with Mr. Kopersinski.
Thank you, Your Honor. Sam, thank you very much for your question. This is an ongoing battle. This is an ongoing battle. And we do enforce ordinances. We do, our building inspectors do write tickets, et cetera. One of the things we have going against us, and our honor here does not sit on this court, but the housing courts are very difficult to work with from a village perspective. So they will provide people with many 6-month continuations to do the upkeep of their property. Now, we learned a few years ago that one of the things that we could do independently of the housing courts was to file civil suits. So as we're able, we started doing this. We tried to we had staff identify the 10 worst properties in the village. And then the procedure was, again, as we're able to financially, as we're able to fund this, to file civil suits against homeowners and to bring about some kind of improvement, some kind of negotiation or whatever through that process. So it is always an ongoing battle, and I think that's the only word that that really applies here. And we're still trying. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. O'Neill?
Yes, I guess it comes back to that meeting again, but I was thinking that, and we do have dialogue with the building department, and we have had dialogue with the police in regard to the offenders. But perhaps we need to upgrade our dialogue with the building department and the police. And I include the police because I'm sure they have a lot of experience in witnessing the offenders, the houses that are kept very, very poorly. But that's something we can pursue, and hopefully that will bring about a level up. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Vanderbilt?
We have 3 Department of Public Workers whose sole job, I just learned this in the audit review meeting on Saturday, whose sole purpose is to go around and look at every single water meter in the village of Park Forest. Why not give them a form and say, if you see a blighted house in your community, a blighted cooperative in your community, a blighted townhome, and you fill out this form and you hand it into the building department, or those 3 employees hand it into the building department, you as citizens would then be able to come in, get that same form, fill it out, and hand it into the building department. But this all comes down to what I want to fix: blighted houses that are even lived in this community. I want to give that house a boost. Now people are going to say, how are you going to pay for that? Well, we have the gaming fees that we now receive for video gaming, and that right now is going into the sales tax. We can use that money to fund this initiative, and this is something that can be sustained as long as we have video gaming in the village. And what we can do is use that money to give the neighbors a boost. You know, hey, if you got that form, tell your neighbor, hey, you've got a blight. Maybe at the bottom we could even put need neighborhood initiative incentive help. And that they could come to the village and say, I know I have a blighted property. Can I get that help to get me started on this project? That's the ideas that we need to start thinking about, and how to help our neighbors and how to get Park Forest better. Thank you.
Ms. Brandon?
Thank you. And thank you for the question. Again, it's part of our ongoing issue of housing, and it is one of my top priorities. We have had initiatives previously over the years, and I can recall some of them, whereby residents were offered the opportunity to get like new windows or do some upgrading of their homes. I can't remember the specific programs, but I do remember over the years we have had programs like that. And amazingly, you would think that many people would take advantage of them. But like for instance, right now, the program for the sound barrier, there's money that's still sitting there for those residents that would apply to that's not being used. So it's a thing of getting people motivated to do that, number one. And number two is that I think that we can look at other initiatives. Now, I have to check on how the gaming fees can be used. I'm not sure that is a manner that we can do that. But I think we can look at other initiatives that, as we once did have, that would help people. Part of the problem, too, is that we have many seniors who need help. Another thing is developing some type of community commission that would involve people who would be willing to help those seniors, who would allow them to do that. And that's the other part of it. Just because you want to help a senior work on their house doesn't mean that senior is going to allow you to do that. We've had that experience too. So it's a multi-level problem that we have to look at various different ways. And I'm always open to any resident who have any suggestions, or you you come across any type of initiative or grants to help us deal with that, because it's something that we together have to work on.
Thank you. Ms. Graham.
Thank you. I've thought for a while that we should have a Welcome to Park Forest committee. This committee would welcome the new residents and let them know that we have pride in our community, and throwing a sheet up as some blinds or as a panel to go over your window. That's not how we do in Park Forest. And I would like I said, a committee to tell these people that this is how we have pride in our community, and we want you to have pride in your community as well. We have people in place that can monitor and ticket the situation, so why not come up with some stiffer fines to make these people actually see that this is a problem and we need them to get it together.
Thank you. We'll continue with our questioning. Next questioner.
Yes.
Name and address, please, sir.
Yes,
30 seconds to ask your question.
Yes, thank you. I'm Charles Derringer, and I'm from Chicago Heights, which is one of those automatic towns that you were describing. I actually am working on fixing that as well. But I am very proud of coming to this community because I made the decision 30 years ago, and the only reason I didn't move into Park Forest was because of flooding. I also came to this area because of flooding and repaired a school for special ed that had been knocked out of service after 6 months. So my background is in...
Your question, sir?
Yes. It has to do with sustainability. And specifically, we have storm sewers in this town, and we have water retention needs that are affecting our dam. And the Corps of Engineers may be taking it down because we're loading it up with all kinds of silt. So we need to fix our infrastructure in that respect. But I'm also a groundwater guardian, and I want us to think about our wells. We need to protect our wells with a wellhead protection program or move them so we have a better resource.
I've heard your statement. What is your question?
Well, I'm questioning what we're doing about those aspects because those are infrastructure sustainability issues.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. And I take it this is a question for all of the candidates?
Yes, it is.
All righty. We'll start first with Ms. O'Neill.
Yes, and I'm not sure if what you're referring to is the water mains.
I'm talking wellhead protection area.
Okay.
And that protects them from spills from the railroad, those kinds of things.
Okay, and I do have to say that as much as I've heard dialogue on the issue, we've talked about our water mains, we've talked about our sewers, I really don't have enough information on the wells to be able to speak to that, so I'm going to pass on that.
Thank you. Mr. Vanderbilt?
All right, let's start this off. A wellhead protection is pretty much we have 7 wells in our village. 2 of them are not working, so we really only have 5 wells. And out of these 7 wells, as they come up to the ground, this is like a capped dome that you have to put over your wells to protect your water from contamination. Okay, and if you don't have these good wellheads, your water will be contaminated. And we have to have an updated wellhead system on every one of our wells, and they have to be inspected yearly, and I believe they are inspected yearly, but that's something that we have to look into and to watch over as our aging infrastructure. So what I'd like to get into, though, is our aging infrastructure. We have 72.5 miles of water mains in Park Forest. 11 miles have been fixed. We're going to be paying out $1.25 million a mile, and that's right now's rates, okay? That comes back to be about $72.5 million. Let's add the interest on there. You're now at about $100 million of water main miles that need to be fixed in this village. What is the sitting village trustees and mayor doing to help us as citizens? What are they doing? They're taxing us. I'm offering something different, a different view that we don't have to be. We're going to still be taxed, but you know what? At a lot smaller rate, because what I want to do is build an extension or maybe redesign and redevelop a building that's abandoned in Park Forest and turn it into a water bottling facility where we can take the best tasting water by the Illinois Protection Agency, the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, said we have the #1 tasting water in Illinois. Why don't we do something about it? You know who has? I got cited and said, no one's going to buy bottled water from us. I got rocket fuel from Rich East High School. They go to a source in Wisconsin to buy bottled water. Why aren't we bottling our water for our own schools? We have bottled water in the back here that's being provided, and I really appreciate that. And this is the best food I've ever seen at one of these forums, and I appreciate that.
Thank you.
But what are we doing about this?
Thank you very much, sir. Ms. Brandon.
Thank you. We have and continue to have, we've developed a strategic plan to deal with our sewers, our water mains, as well as the protection of our wells. And that plan continues to go. We utilize grant funds so that we can keep your tax dollars down. We did sanitary rehab excess flow facility for $1 million some dollars that was completed. When we get grant money, we have the ability to get the money because we are very conservative in maintaining our finances. That means that we put aside a certain amount that goes into reserve, so when opportunities come for grants, we've got the part that we need to put into it. If it's a 30% part 20% part, we have that money. We will continue to do that process as well as continue to look at any and every other type of opportunity that will come about. This is not going to be something that's going to be fixed right now. It didn't happen right now. Unfortunately, our forefathers did not do what they needed to do along the way, so here we are. In terms of the water production, that is more than just bottling water. There is I've said this before, there's the plant that's needed to do that. There are the people that's needed to do that. There's the process that's needed for it. And we would love to bottle our water. I see your bottle there, Mr. Vanderbilt. And, I'm a Rocket fan too. But it's just not that simple. And it's certainly something to continue to look into.
Thank you. Ms. Graham?
Well, in looking at the financial update from last year, there is a grant, as Ms. Brandon had previously mentioned, that the grant was for $500,000, and it's a 55-45 split. It's a match. So we're putting into it, but we're also using grant money to restructure everything. And like Ms. Brandon said, it's not going to happen overnight, and it's not going to happen in a week. So just be patient, and if you would like more information, I have it right here, and I can let you know after this forum.
Thank you. Mr. Kopachinski.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Derringer, welcome back to Park Forest. I knew 30 seconds was going to be a challenge for you. We do take safety, public safety, and sustainability issues very seriously. We have a sustainability coordinator. That position is funded by a grant right now, and I assure you that, and I'm not supposed to rebut, but I assure you that our wellheads are inspected. Wellhead protection is an issue, particularly around the railroad tracks. And I know one of the things that we're concerned about is if there were some kind of a catastrophic spill at that point, what would happen to our aquifers? What protections do we need to have in place so that our water sources are protected ad infinitum. So I appreciate your concerns. None of these are simple answers, but I assure you that we do have people and staff members and the board, which is kept up to date, looking at all of these issues. Public safety, the health and welfare of our residents is extremely, extremely important to us. Thank you.
Thank you. Just for a point of clarification, while there is no formal rebuttal, each candidate, if they wish, may certainly rebut any question in response to a question that is asked. Also, any candidate may include in their 2-minute closing statement any rebuttal statements if they wish. We'll continue with the questioning. Next questioner, please.
My name is John Lester. I live at 192 Park Street. I'm going to ask the question that you do have the ability to answer. Your job is to plan and set policy. And one of the problems that come to mind, the reason I'm asking this question is a situation they have in Madison. I wonder if it would be possible if y'all would ever give it a thought of the village like Olympic Field, Richmond Park, Olympic, Madison, forming one organization for police and fire department. And the reason I ask, I know we have agreement now with the fire department that they assist each other.
All right, Mr. Lester, you need to get to your question, sir.
Can we just have come to a signed agreement with some other village to have one police department and one fire department? And this would eliminate the amount of people that each village would be required to have, employees.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Vanderbilt.
There are two local communities to the north and west of us who actually share police and fire. And for them, it works out all right because one of them's a lot smaller, or it's not working out now, but it did work out before. All right. But unifying police and fire, I think that's something, a feasibility study. I mean, that's a great idea to look into. But one thing is for our taxes, police and fire do take a lot, but some of these school districts, if we're going to talk about unifying any forms of government, let's talk about unifying the school districts. Right now, we're paying, $25 million in debt with the combined school districts in Park Forest. If you're going to talk about unifying, I think one place to do a feasibility study would be to do police and fire, and then also let's start looking at our school districts and how to unify them, and to really then have control over Rich East High School, Forest Trail, and we could have connecting career programs where they go from Forest Trail to high school straight to careers, and they could work on that career for their whole school life and be prepared when they leave. Rich Township doesn't want Rich East. If we unified, we could make Park Forest and Rich East High School great again. The students wouldn't be leaving to go to South, to go to the school that's the charter school, the voucher school. All right, we're losing students to that. If we're going to talk about unifying, I'd really like to see two feasibility studies and see what the results are. But to unify police and fire would be tough at this point.
Thank you. Ms. Brandon?
Thank you. It's good to see you, Mr. Lester. I haven't seen you in quite a while. First of all, we are not over the schools. The schools have their separate boards. That is something that is totally out of our hands. We can make working kinds of relationships to kind of help look at some of the problems. And we have that with a couple of things that we're looking at in terms of adding courses and making connections between the high schools and the community colleges. And Mayor Ostenberg is on that committee. But that's a separate entity. We have nothing to do with that. In terms of police safety and other things like that, we do have some agreements in place to do some sharing. We're part of the Southcom, which is Park Forest, Richmond Park, Madison. It used to be Olympia Fields, and Olympia Fields pulled out, well, they're now with Chicago Heights. We share equipment. You know, we have agreements to share some of the larger pieces of equipment. We have, so there are some agreements. But keep in mind, while, we've talked about this, I've talked about this with other residents, when it comes to having someone share your police, your fire, think about it. Do you want to do that? Who becomes the director of fire and police? Who becomes the director of the other thing? It really is a much more monumental problem. It makes a lot of sense to do that within a certain population, but when it comes down to the logistics and how it would be managed, that is the big question. So I will continue to look at and support looking at ways of where we can share equipment, share services to keep down our cost.
Thank you. Ms. Graham.
I'm open to talks about combining our communities, but I personally think that the separate entities are needed. We, like Ms. Brandon said, we do have relationships with our surrounding communities, and some of our surrounding communities don't even have the power that we have. Well, was that firepower, or they don't have the police presence, they don't have the fire department, and they don't have ambulances like we do. But I believe that it's good to have separate entities.
Thank you. Mr. Kopachinski.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Lester, thank you for the question. I don't see us merging as such. Especially, we have one community nearby that just let go 17 police officers, and I don't know how many other staff members. And we do have sharing agreements. So we do share apparatus. There was a fire on Area J, I believe, maybe Area E, last year or so, and there was we don't have a ladder truck. So the ladder truck for Madison was here. We do have Southcom, which is a joint venture, which does save us money. Our police also help out with each other in various communities. So our police, probably once a week at least, but at least our canine units are asked to go to different areas in nearby communities and do a narcotic search or something on a vehicle that was pulled over. When the turnaround, when the cloverleaf or whatever was going in at the Canadian National tracks at the, our police were covering for Madison, where Madison was not able to access, and that has happened vice versa. With respect to school districts, I see my friend Susie Brown here. We talked over 10 years ago about consolidating school districts. I just don't know that it's ever going to happen, but again, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. O'Neill?
Well, first of all, I'm all about regionalism. But having said that, I'm going to tell you that the Chamber of Commerce that I last served for 15 years, whenever we had, and we served Madison, Richton Park, Olympia Fields, University Park, and Park Forest. Whenever we tried to have regional, discuss regional issues, we ran into problems. We couldn't even come up with a name that we tried several times with all the communities working together. Now, I think that the idea of unifying our police and fire, I'm not saying that we should kill the idea. I think it should be ongoing and from time to time research the possibilities. I'm pleased that, as been mentioned, we do share equipment. We do have a Southcom where 3 communities now are sharing the services. But I do believe it's going to be a real tug of war when you talk about unifying police and fire. But I'm not saying we give up on it.
Thank you. I think we have time for one more question. We'll have our next questioner.
Jerome.
Your name and address in 30 seconds, sir.
Jerome Brown, 514 Blair Street. First of all, I would like to say that the National Congress of Black Women is having an all-you-can-eat after party. And secondly, and this is for all of the candidates, when we're trying to bring commercial businesses and residents to Park Forest, and you have a lot of negative things that are happening, and things such as even in schools, bullying and things like of that nature. How do you think it's affecting people coming into this village, as far as business or resident, when we have a newspaper that share the town name with negative and biased opinions?
Thank you. We'll start this round with Ms. Brandon.
I'm not sure of the question. I'm going to take a stab at it. Okay, I'm going to leave off the newspaper end because I'm not sure what that is. I don't know that. Is he allowed to?
If you sharing
Clarification of the
I
question?
do need clarification of the question.
Mr. Brown?
the name of this town is Park Forest, the village of Park Forest. There's a paper that shared the same name that covers bias and negative stories. How do you think that affects bringing businesses and residents to this village?
Ms. Brandon.
I think any newspaper, you're going to get positive and you're going to get negatives. And actually, the news typically wants what's going to stand out there. And often, that's the negatives. I don't care which newspaper you pick up. There are lots of good things that are going on, but what things capture people's attention are the things that are considered to, quote, be negative. And I'm just saying negative because it's, you know, if it's information that is correct, then that's what it is. But this town is not, okay, I've lived here for, as I said, 49 years. And if I thought this was such a bad town to live in, believe me, on the 3 different occasions I had the opportunity to move, I would have moved. I remain in this town because I believe in this town. I believe this town has much to offer. While we have had challenges like other places, we have really weathered those challenges much better than many of the surrounding communities around us. So it's up to us as residents, okay, to be positive about what goes on in this town, because there are many positive things that go on. Yes, we have blighted houses. Yes, we have people that don't take care of their houses. Yes, our taxes are higher, but I want you to remember, and to give you this in 30 seconds, that only 33% of your tax dollar, take that dollar, are for all of the service that you get in Park Forest. You look at your tax bill and see where the rest of the money, the majority of the money is going towards your school systems. And you need to keep that in mind, that what you get for that 33 cents out of that dollar is a safe place to live and to be proud to live in.
Thank you. Ms. Graham?
There are negatives and positives to being in Park Forest, and I think it would be biased of the village not to report the negatives and the positives. I think that's wrong to just say, okay, we're going to come up with some positives just because we don't have any right now. I think it's good that both sides are reported.
Thank you. Mr. Kopachinski.
Thank you, Judge. I'm not sure what publication Mr. Brown might be referring to, but I am very proud of E-News Park Forest. We started in the spring of 2006, and we kind of say our launch date. You have a soft opening or whatever over the summer, and our launch date was somewhere September, October. The news is what it is, and it's not easy to report on some of the negative things that happen. It's certainly not easy to. Now, our crime has gone down statistically, but that doesn't mean that if your vehicle was broken into, you're still going to feel the impact of that. On the other side, I am very proud of the work that Rosemary Pizer continues to do. It's a column that I think should be read more in and around Park Forest. And there are activities for young children at the library, which I think is another community center that we could talk about. There are activities for young children, for teens. So there's a lot of positive that goes on in this town, and sometimes when negative things happen, we don't want to see it in print. But that's part of the story, too. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. O'Neill?
Yes, I think news is comprehensive, and I know with myself, if I'm watching the news on TV, it can be positive and negative, and I think it's just the nature of news. In regard to our residents being negative or positive, I think I've had an incident. I agree with May that it's up to us to be positive. And I had a couple of incidents where I was going to a couple of dining places, some fast food, some not. And if people knew who I was, they would come up and just go, what is wrong with this? And why that? And why, you know, and it got to be draining. And sometimes I got to avoid those places, but I decided to take a different approach. Now they don't really come at me as hard because I didn't negate their negative, but I kind of countered it with positive. And I would say, yeah, I hear you, but here's what we're doing. And this is what's going on. And, you know, so I think they didn't feel that they had this captured audience for all the negative. And I think we do have to spread the positive. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Vanderbilt.
Shareholders are coming into this village and passing right by. There's community, we have blight in this community. There are things that we can do better on. They're offering no solutions to the taxes that we're being taxed with, to the blights that we have in our community. I'm giving you hope. I'm giving you a change to realize that we can do something and we can set policy to change Park Forest. As a village or manager form of government, we can set that policy to make the change. That change is to help homeowners get that boost, to get their properties up to code, to get their properties looking good for shareholders. When they come in, they're saying, you know what, I want to live in Park Forest. I want to be a part of what this community is, right? I want to offer a solution, right? We have the housing market right now, or not the housing market. The Housing Authority Fund is down. The Aqua Center is losing money. The library is losing money. Freedom Hall is breaking even. These are things that we need to make changes in and somehow help, because right now we're being taxed that money. One of the things I'd like to do to help offset those costs is to sell our water and bottle it. We have the best tasting water in Illinois, and yet it's an unutilized resource sitting right around us. And we talk about how people don't want to buy water, bottled water, and this and that, but there's proof in the pudding. There's proof in the bottle sitting in front of us that we can sell our water. And now people are going to say, well, what about water in general? What about usage? Water usage right now is at its lowest it's ever been in Park Forest. Right now, water usage, we have another 20 million gallons a day that we could be using to offset the cost to us as residents, and yet we're doing nothing. We are doing nothing with our water other than letting it run through these rusted out pipes and paying $1.2 million a mile to tax us to pay for it when we could have a solution.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, please remember to vote on Tuesday, April 7th. We're going to give each of our candidates an opportunity to present a 2-minute closing statement. I will take moderator privilege, and we will do it in an alphabetical order, starting with Ms. Brandon. 2-minute closing statement.
It's alphabetical order. Once again, I want to thank each and every one of you for coming out. I want to thank those of you that are at home, either watching it via stream or on your internet or cable. But most important, thanks to the Non-Partisan Committee of Park Forest, to the National Congress of Black Women and to our great Nurses Plus for allowing us the opportunity to speak with you and answer your questions so that you give an idea of who we are and what we're all about. I'm asking for your vote to continue to serve as your trustee. I have been appointed in 2003, and I have to tell you that, first of all, I consider it an honor that you have confidence in me performing the job up to this point. And second, I consider it a very deep responsibility to have this job because it's my responsibility as a trustee to take care of you, our citizens, and our town and our village, and to make sure that it is the best place that we want to live, that it does have all of the needs. We do provide for each and every one, regardless of color, race, religion, or economic status. That has always been the tradition of Park Forest, and that is a tradition that I still hold. Along with that, yes, we have to move ahead to find more creative ways to continue to lower our tax bills, to get the things done that we need to get done at the least cost, to take advantages of any of the initiatives and opportunities that we have that's going to make Park Forest. So we can do that, but we have to maintain fiscal responsibility. We just can't just throw it all to the wind. Otherwise, some of the gains that we've made will no longer continue to make. So together with you, with your vote, I would love to continue as your trustee. So remember, vote April the 7th. And thank you once again.
Thank you, Ms. Brandon. Ms. Graham, 2-minute closing statement.
Thank you. In closing, I would like to thank everyone who came out, the viewers at home, the National Congress of Black Women, Nurses Plus, the Honorable Judge Funderburk, and the Non-Partisan Committee. My desire is to give back to the community by being a positive influence in the lives of young people. One never knows how a single act of kindness or guidance may impact someone's life, someone for the rest of their lives. Whether it's positive or negative, you can still have an influence. I can't make a promise to resolve all of the issues that we're facing in Park Forest. However, I would like the opportunity to work with the leadership of Park Forest to bring much needed business opportunities to the village, as well as work towards finding a solution to our housing issues of vacant and deteriorating homes. I'm asking you to give me an opportunity to help build a new Park Forest. Vote for me on April 7th.
Thank you. Mr. Kopachinski.
Thank you once again to the Nonpartisan Committee for sponsoring this forum, to the members of the National Congress of Black Women and Nurses Plus for hosting us, and all of you for showing up and for your very thoughtful questions. Thank you also, Your Honor. I knew when I saw you moderating here that this was not going to be a short one. His Honor likes to give everybody the opportunity to speak, and I applaud that. As trustee, I was prepared, I am prepared for weekly board meetings, seeking additional information from staff members, citizens, and business owners. I attend committee, commission, and neighborhood meetings, meet with school boards and citizen groups. I do go door to door. I return phone calls. I return emails. And I bring your concerns as I get them to the proper people in village staff. I work to ensure that our youth have a strong voice in government and our seniors maintain theirs. I have worked hard for the safety of our streets, pushing for improvements for our police and fire departments in matters of personnel and equipment. I push for economic development, support our housing developments, and work to maintain Park Forest as a truly all-America city, which from its inception has welcomed and embraced diversity. And that means regardless of race, creed, color, sexual orientation, whoever you are, you belong here. I am a small business owner. I'm proud of that. Started a community news service, E-News Park Forest. We are going strong, and hopefully we'll go strong into the future. The issues defining this election are housing, taxes, development, village services. I look forward to serving you once again. This is a crucial election. I need your support, and I ask for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. O'Neill?
Yes, I want to start out my closing statement by again thanking the Park Forest Non-Partisan Committee, the National Congress of Black Women, Nurses Plus, the viewers and attendees, and the Honorable Ray Funderburg. My closing comments focus mainly on what I will bring to the table as a continuing trustee. I've worked closely with the area business communities, legislators, economic development organizations. For many years, my main career objective was to provide area businesses with tools for growth. As a chamber manager, my focus areas were mainly on 2 R's, retention and regionalism. Here is how I intend to work within those focus areas. In regard to business retention, I will continue to coordinate with the Park Forest Economic Development Advisory Group. I've been trustee liaison with that group throughout most of my 8 years as trustee. I am proud of what they have accomplished in the area of business retention and will work with them to continue providing our businesses with tools for growth. In regard to regionalism, I'm active with the Chicago Southland Chamber of Commerce, the Madison Business Association, and the South Suburban Mayors and Managers Association. I'm proud to tell you that I have witnessed over the years how Park Forest has been a role model in regional efforts. I'm excited about the future of Park Forest, and I want to not only be involved, but assist in the efforts. Obama said that the worst has already passed. We're on a comeback. We have the opportunity to write our own future. Again, I'm grateful for this opportunity. I've served this village for nearly 45 years, and with your support and your vote, I'll work hard for you and continue to serve Park Forest. So please remember to vote for Georgia O'Neill on April 7th. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Vanderbilt.
Park Forest is a great community to live, grow, and discover, but recent times have been tough on the village, and though we've done better than other communities, we're not standing out. I want to continue the sustainability plan. I want to improve the tax burden on us as residents. I want to improve that by bottling our water and selling it to local communities, businesses, schools, all right? This will create a sustainable tax flow for us to focus on and to use so that as us as citizens, that payments will decrease over time. Because in 2017, there's going to be a new contract done for our water. And if we don't pay attention, those rates could skyrocket even more in 2017. I want to help it reduce crime in Park Forest by creating a bicycle squad who can go around through our parks, through our alleyways, through our streets, and patrol them rather than them sitting in a vehicle. Having them 1 by 1 or 2 rolling together, however the police figures that out. I just want to set a policy where we can have a bike squad to go through these parks and really see what's going on. For the commuters in the morning, they could ride through on the Old Plank Trail in the mornings. In the afternoons, they could ride around the schools. They could visit the schools. Same thing they do in a vehicle. I want to encourage civic duty by rewarding citizens and creating an online platform that can range from homeowners shoveling out their fire hydrant, because as we all know, the fire chief recently asked all of us to shovel out our fire hydrants in case of a fire, and there recently was a fire, and that fire hydrant was not in use because the water was frozen in there. Right? These are things that we could do as citizens, and I'd like to reward that with an online platform. Right now, Chicago Park System and Orland Park has an online platform to where they encourage and actually reward civic involvement. I think Park Forest has that, and with these new residents coming in, I think that could really give them a boost, and us as residents, to encourage them to participate and be involved in civic duty. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's give all of our candidates a round of applause. That concludes our forum. Again, ladies and gentlemen, please remember to vote on Tuesday, April 7th. Thank you very much.